right, welcome back. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a text message. And hey, when you send us your text message, tell us how you're listening. Are you listening on the radio? What station is it? Are you listening online? How are you listening online? Tell us about it. 870-275-9799. Just have a text message here. Run someone against him. Talking about Asa. Well, yeah, good luck with that. I mean, first of all, who's gonna do it? Who can raise enough money to beat him and win? And here's the thing. Who's gonna do it? That's going to make people think, who are already in office, who are conservative, who are platform Republicans, to be like, yeah, I'll stick my neck out. I'll go ahead and there's, I don't know. I mean, it's a short list of one, and that's pretty much it. So we'll push for if reelected. But what if it stopped there and he said, but Hutchinson reiterated that Arkansans are overtaxed and are in desperate need of relief from too many taxes, too much regulation. Our small businesses need to be rewarded for their success and risk, not punished by a government that seeks to take an ever-increasing amount of their profits and their hard work. Can you imagine how amazing it would be to have a governor that would at least say something like that? But that's not what you get from this governor. That's not what you get from the president pro temp of the Senate, Jonathan Dismang, who, again, on KUAR, Jacob Kaufman's his story, he interviewed Dismang. And Dismang was just very cryptic in answering the questions about specifics. And he kept saying things like, well, we need to see where we are. This is going to be a very data-driven process. And what that means is, translation, we're going to bring in, quote, experts, or we're going to bring in people that are going to give the data that we want to be given to these legislators, and these legislators are going to play ball, and they're going to, look, I am all for getting rid of exemptions for this industry or that industry. Don't misunderstand me. But mark my words, getting rid of this industry's tax loop or this will result in more money coming to the government, and they will not turn around and take all of that money, all the extra money, and give it back to us. I promise you they won't. Because they don't believe you're overtaxed. Jonathan Dismang does not believe small businesses in this state are overtaxed. Asa Hutchinson does not believe small businesses in this state are overtaxed. They believe you should give them that 6.9%, and they think you should be grateful for bringing it from 7% down to 6.9%. They are waiting on your thank you cards for allowing you to keep more of the money you work for every single day. And then at the same time, well, we're certainly going to have the priority of hardworking Arkansans. What's a hardworking Arkansan? What's a hardworking Arkansan? They don't care about hardworking Arkansans. Senator Dismang stood on the Senate floor in the special session and lamented the concept being advanced that a lot of people on Arkansas Works who don't have jobs are bums. He lamented the fact, that these guys are lowlifes. You're saying these guys are deadbeats. Well, okay. What do you call someone who gets free health care and doesn't have to work for it? More importantly, doesn't want to work for it. What do you call that person? You call that person an overachiever? They've obviously achieved something because you want to reward them with Barack Obama's redistribution of wealth scheme, which was Obamacare, we need everybody who's working hard to suffer and pay more in premiums so that we can give health care away to others who are able to work. And we're not talking about the truly disabled. We're not talking about the truly needy. We're talking about a completely brand new government government charter that is now saying, if you are alive, health care is a right in this country. And that is why Miss USA, the physicist, the government scientist, or whatever she was, when she took so much heat this week when she went out and she said health care is a privilege, not a right. Because the left in this country, aided by people like Governor Hutchinson, and people are going to get really mad, but you have to understand something here. The fact that we as vassal states, especially in the South, rolled over and did not
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. We lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Paul, and you have found the intersection of conservative ideas and reality where we are building a liberty machine, and we need your help to do that. One of the ways, if you want to do that, want to help us do that, you can call us or text us the number 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Joe, first question to you today. Are you familiar with the Duggars? Yeah. Okay. I know, Arkansas Family. I know the TV show and everything like that, but I never even watched one of those television shows. And unfortunately, the more stuff, I guess the stuff that I know about the Duggars, unfortunately, is just, the tabloid stuff, the bad stuff that happened, and that's kind of that's really all of it. I really, when you hear that name, that's kind of what I think of. Somebody who didn't watch the show or anything like that. Well, we now have the Duggars, and they are suing, okay. 4 daughters of the Jim Bob Duggar family have sued local officials, claiming they improperly released police documents to a tabloid that published the information and identified the girls as victims of sexual abuse. This was a lawsuit filed Thursday in federal court in Fayetteville. The daughters are Jill Dillard, Jessa Seawald, Ginger Voolo, and Joy Duggar. Defendants include, listen to the defendants here, Washington County, the city of Springdale, former Springdale Police Chief Kathy O'Kelly, Springdale City Attorney Ernest Cate, Major Rick Hoyt with the Washington County Sheriff's Office, former Washington County Attorney Steve Zaga, and Bauer Media Group, which publishes In Touch Weekly magazine and related social media sites. The lawsuit also lists 10 unidentified Doe defendants believed to be employees of the defendants. They're claiming essentially an invasion of privacy. Of course, it all gets down to Springdale officials. They're saying, hey, look, we did this with freedom. We got a Freedom of Information Act request. We turned the documents over and that sort of thing. However, the lawsuit says that these officials released they basically say, yeah, okay, under the Freedom of Information Act request, but in violation of state laws that prohibit the release of such information in order to protect children and victims of sexual abuse, In Touch published the information despite a judge's order to seal the documents for financial gain and to embarrass the Duggars, according to the lawsuit. This is kind of a big deal. And you got to wonder why would you make such a mistake? If that's true, and it was a violation of state laws that prohibit the release of such information to protect the victims of crimes like this, or you turn over the documents but you redact what needs to be redacted, you got to wonder what kind of rookie mistakes is the government making, and why did they make them? So anyway, pretty interesting. Hey, did anybody catch the show Friday? If you did, if you want to follow up, especially on the 5 o'clock segment that had to do with State Representative James Sturch, I do want to refer you over to conduitforaction.org. There was a story that just broke over there that essentially has the exact same information as what I covered on Friday at 5. It's really good, and they have the video. You can see it for yourself. And what, of course, I'm talking about is the special election reform bill that passed the House of Representatives this past legislative session by 2 votes. But then they decided to sound the ballot, which is when they basically roll call the entire chamber of the yes votes, right? And you got to be in your seat in order to be counted again. And State Representative James Sturch, he's a state representative from Independence County. He got up and left, and there's a video of it. He had voted for it, and when it got time to call his name, he gets up and he walks out. If you want to see that video, it's up at conduitforaction.org right now. And it gives you all of the details and everything else. And this is an attempt, at least when I covered it on Friday, to just expose some of these legislative sleight of hand. They think you will never know about this, okay? So that's up at conduitforaction.org. But on the topic of special elections, it's a pretty good segue into what P. Ridge is now doing. Have you heard about this? Okay. Let me see here. 1 second. I've got this piece up where P. Ridge is now going to try again for another millage increase after their last one failed. Let's see here. Hang on. Yeah, sorry. No, it's my fault. P. Ridge, the school district of P. Ridge will try again in February. Now, that's interesting. February of 2018. There's a November 2018 election. They don't want to wait till November. They will try again in February for a millage increase after voters rejected a tax proposal earlier this month. Now, this is according to the superintendent, Rick Neal. Quote, "We've highlighted some things we're going to work on, and we've determined to go ahead again in February," Neal told the school board, but voters rejected the district's request for a 5.1 mil increase on May the 9th. So if this doesn't demonstrate why special election reform was needed, it was to prevent this very thing. We didn't get what we wanted. We had an election in May. We were supposed to get what we wanted, which most of the time they get their tax increases when they have these special elections instead of, getting maximum voter turnout at a general election or a primary. And they just can't do it. And by the way, there'll be a primary next year as well in May. Can't do it then. No, we're going to do it in February when there's a primary election right around the corner because you want the tax increase. Because if you were given the choice, if P. Ridge or any of these other school districts were given the choice of having, 60% voter turnout versus 40%, I guarantee you the superintendents would rather have 40%. Of course, 60% is really high anyway. But you understand the point. This is what this bill that James Sturch personally killed by walking out after looking at his cell phone. It appears after he had voted yes for it. It's just unbelievable. I mean, it's perfectly believable. It's just, I don't know, it's just exhausting to have to continue to report what these people are doing in your name, and they think you're going to never find out about it. The Bentonville and Rogers districts also proposed millage increases on May the 9th, and voters approved those requests. So I'm sure P. Ridge is kind of upset that their voters weren't as smart as the other voters in the Bentonville and Rogers districts. You mean you don't want to pay more in taxes? You guys must be missing. You guys must be missing. A few marbles. If you don't want to pay more in taxes, I mean, you must not care about the kids. You know, the folks up in Bentonville and Rogers, they passed their millage increases. They wanted to be taxed more. They cared more about the kids. People in Pea Ridge, no, they said no. We don't want more taxes. We're sick of this stuff. This is a great part of the article that really sticks out to me. It says, quote, Pea Ridge has 2 tries left to get a millage increase before the state withdraws its financial support. Now that's the real. They got 2 tries left. So don't worry, voters of Pea Ridge, folks who are in Pea Ridge, you guys who are actually conservative, you guys who believe in limited government, you guys who understand the fact that property taxes and things like that are designed to get more revenue by just staying the same, but as more people come in and pay property taxes, you guys that understand that whole concept that you don't need to raise taxes every time you need money. Just so you know, you only have to defeat this thing 2 more times, and then finally they'll leave you alone, hopefully, maybe, who knows, for a couple of years. But in this case, I don't know, less than a year. I mean, they voted down in May. They're going to go it again. We're running it back in February. It's like you just lost at I don't know, it's like losing a ping pong game and immediately, all right, let's going to run it back. Let's run it back. Let's see if I can beat you this time. Lost this time, but let's immediately go. You ready to defend it again? You ready to stay on the issue again? I mean, it's just nag. We want more money. We want more money. We want more money. And special elections are wrong because we don't have time. Hard-working Arkansans do not have time to constantly be worried about whether or not you're taking more. They're out working. They're out trying to make ends meet for your family, and then they have to get engaged. It's not as publicized as a general election, right? There's less people that show up. The ones that do typically are on the side of the school district who just want to take other people's money and spend it the way they see fit. It's just ridiculous. And yet we had a chance to end special elections as we know it. Now, ending them entirely is not necessarily what was going to happen. There would have been exceptions. But end special elections as we know it. They even got the Association of Counties on board with it. And then it failed on a procedural move. And now we have the people who are already overtaxed, overregulated, and we're in this situation. And then folks of Pea Ridge are really the first post this failing to immediately suffer. There's been plenty of local communities that have suffered from this. There's been plenty of hardworking Arkansans that have had their tax dollars in an election, increase to the government. In some cases without their knowledge, in some cases, just by these really, shady means. And it is shady. It is shady. Special elections are shady. People who support special elections, for the most part, are shady as well. There, I said it. Because you are perpetuating a system that does not reflect the consent of the governed compared to a general election. And essentially, I wish you'd just be honest about it and you'd say, yeah, we'd prefer less people to decide how to spend everyone else's money. Because that's the system that you are supporting when you constantly, and in this case, I mean, special election, it goes on all the time. And in this case, you just lost. The people defeated your team. Well, we've made adjustments, Paul. Well, then, you know what? Maybe you should have made adjustments the first time, before May 9th. They voted it down, and now you're going to bring it back in February, all trying to get some matching funds from the state. And in this way, this is how the state even perpetuates it. The state wants to make the local communities the bad guy. The state is running out of money. The state, because of poor leadership in the Republican Party leadership, they can't get their spending under control. They can't allow a full 135 body General Assembly to actually legislate and pass taxes and actually implement the platform of the Republican Party. Instead, they have to come up with another tax farce, and they got to pretend. And look, in my opinion, we've got some pretty damning comments from Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum. The tax farce met today for the first time. And what do you hear what the Speaker of the House, Jeremy Gillum, said? And my real question is, I don't know why he felt the need to clarify, but he got up there, and we're going to save this for 5 o'clock because we're going to be checking in with Josh Waters from Political Strategies, who was actually there at the meeting. But he got up there, and Jeremy Gillum felt the need to clarify that when you've read about the reports of the tax farce, when you've read about it, you hear that this is a mandate for tax cuts, and he corrected the record and said, I think everybody here knows that that's not necessarily the case, that we're not necessarily about tax cuts, but we're about tax reform. Well, guess what? Tax reform is a lot less specific, depending on who's defining what, than tax cuts. Everybody pretty much understands what a tax cut is, right? Although they can even twist that. And that's why at 4:30 I'll get into this a little bit more, and I'll explain the whiteboard that we got going on here, because they've got 3 options, and we know which one they're going to go with. But this Pea Ridge situation, special election, it's fascinating to me how a couple of days, we do a segment on Friday, and then we come back here on a Monday, and you've got these headlines that just are exposing exactly what we're talking about. They're fitting together kind of like a glove puzzle pieces, So they're worried about special election. They're worried about getting the state's contribution. Do we have anything else here? There's some more stuff here, but the bottom line is, if you first don't succeed at taking more of the people's money, try again. And this is not just a Pea Ridge issue. This is all over Arkansas. I've seen it in Northeast Arkansas. We see it in Northwest Arkansas. We see it everywhere. And it's got to stop. And kudos to the people who are out there voting for limited government, saying we don't want to be taxed anymore. Some of these local officials need to be thrown out of office. Some of these school boards need to get control of their superintendents as well. Of course, some of these school board members, they believe, look, in order to solve any education problems we have, we got to go get more money from folks, and that's an issue too. And there are school board elections. The phone number to call us or text us today, 870-275-9799. We got to go to break. Back in a moment.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to TripleRPawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's TripleRPawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, TripleRPawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN.
If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas. Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 470 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your total document solutions.
Broadcasting across Arkansas and holding politicians accountable for what they say and do. The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, 870-275-9799. You can call, you can text. Feel free. And feel free to tell me what you think about your representation down there. And if anybody's been to any local events, like county events, or anything else where some of your legislators who are Republicans have told you how great everything was, I'd love to know about it. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying the guys, because even on our impression of the session, I mean, you've had some conservatives say, yeah, okay, there was this done that was positive, there was this done, but as far as like our key principles, like things are really, right now, I'll tell you what I'm doing, Joe. I'm working on, we've had all these impression of the sessions. We've talked to a lot, and we've got some more to talk to, but it's I don't know, it's sometimes it's just time consuming. It's a lot of legislators. I mean, if we were doing them all, there'd be 135 interviews, 135 15 to 20 minute interviews. I mean, that's a lot. But what I'm doing is I'm going and looking and going back and listening to the impression of the sessions that we've done with this senator, that rep, or whatever. And you know how I start every interview the same, and I say, hey, feel free to be as long or as brief as you want. What was your impression of the session 2017? And it's that first 2-3 sentences that are fantastic. And when you listen to them all, because I've already started doing this, compiling the audio, just those first 2 or 3 sentences of this one and then that one and then this one, it's a little depressing if you actually want to see the platform Republican agenda actually implemented. If you actually believe in less government, lower taxes, less regulation, not increasing spending, if you actually believe in these things, a little depressing to hear legislator after legislator, saying how disappointed they were, how they had high expectations, and it's going to be we're going to make a master cut is essentially what's going to happen, and we'll make that available, and it won't just be audio. It'll have photos, pictures of the legislators that we're talking to, the voices that you're going to be hearing on the screen. So stay tuned for that. We're going to have that soon. The phone number again, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. There's something called the Delta. What is this thing called? The Delta. It was like it was some sort of conference or something. Summit. That's the word I'm looking for. Summit. The Delta Summit on Landing International Deals. Talk Business and Politics, quotes Governor Asa Hutchinson speaking at that Delta Summit, is saying this, quote, they come to you and say, we're considering 4 different states. Tell us what you have to offer. And it takes that local participation and the state effort to sell it. But it's also important to be overseas to make sure that we build those relationships. Governor Asa Hutchinson speaking, again, according to Talk Business and Politics, at the Delta Summit. And it's not, I don't think it's the Delta Summit on landing international deals. I don't think the entire topic is on landing international deals. It was just him speaking at the Delta Summit about landing international deals. Because the governor likes to travel, likes to go overseas, secure these relationships. He's got a few more planned. We've gotten 2 communist Chinese companies that are coming here now. And at some point, we are to believe somewhere down the road, the governor will actually have created these jobs. He's certainly getting credit like they're already here in the media. But here's the thing, Joe, and you're going to love this when we talk about this next. They've taken all of your money, folks, especially existing small business owners' money, and giving it away to private companies. And now they're finally admitting what we have been saying all along, that we have a skilled labor shortfall here in the state. More on that when we come back. people like Governor Hutchinson, and people are going to get really mad, but you have to understand something here. The fact that we as vassal states, especially in the South, rolled over and did not fight our government overlords, it only helps to solidify this bogus function, this bogus goal, crusade of government trying to redefine the relationship between citizen and authority and what's expected from the authority. When you don't lead us out of Obamacare, you are solidifying it. You're solidifying a dependency mentality that can be, and we know it is, in many cases with other welfare programs, generational. And in many cases, these programs don't actually help people out of poverty. They make them more dependent, and then so you have a perpetuating problem that makes people generationally dependent on government. But I'm the one that's not compassionate. They're the ones that are always taking other people's money, and they're the ones that are labeled compassionate. You also perpetuate the problem. You also solidify the government's new goal that we're all born enslaved to one another when you hire people like Cindy Gillespie, who I'm sure has convinced people, and I'm sure she is a perfectly nice woman, but it's funny how people can be so opposed to somebody making $280,000 a year versus the old person, John Seelig, making almost half that. And all of a sudden, she's making $280,000 a year, and yet she's from an international law firm that's just a bunch of lobbyists. It's from a law firm called Denton's. She's not here. She's here on assignment, making taxpayer money, but she's really here on assignment to solidify what this law firm Denton's, who represents a lot of this global money, trying to solidify, change our mentality as Americans that, you know what, we ought not be independent. We ought to be dependent on government for things like health care. Look it up. Look up Denton's, Dentons, Denton's. Look it up. International law firm, that's where she's from. Before that, she was Mitt Romney's health care advisor, who Mitt Romney created Romney Care. She was a big part of that. Before Massachusetts, she was at another international law firm. Just look all this up. That's our DHS director. That's who Asa Hutchinson hired. And I know everyone's like, well, now, at first I heard, well, she can't get in contact with her. She was working here, but a lot of legislators couldn't even get in contact with her. Now I'm hearing that's not the case. Okay, that's a good thing. But what are our goals? Are the goals to give away as much as we possibly can of taxpayer resources for free? Most of the time. And if you go talk to the director of DHS up in Maine, Mary Mayhew, she said that was a very difficult mentality to work out of the government program, that just because we've served somebody, that means we've done a good thing. Well, not necessarily. Not if they're not supposed to be on the program. You haven't. It's different. We are overtaxed. We are overburdened. We're overregulated. We want to concentrate on efficiencies in government, Governor Hutchinson said. We want to emphasize pro-growth tax policies. Okay. All right. That's not
fighting dependency on government so Arkansas can be the land of opportunity once again. Paul Harrell is on now.
So it's been kind of fun to deconstruct this Republican narrative that everything in Arkansas is fantastic. When you don't know that they refuse to end Obamacare. Oh, and by the way, when I mean that Medicaid expansion, by the way, on that, we're going to get into the actual, the work requirements in Arkansas works. Let me just say this. We now know why they didn't actually have the specifics of what the requirement was going to be in the law they passed during the extraordinary session a couple of weeks ago. Because, folks, it's It's more like a work option, not a work requirement. First, it was a work suggestion. Now it's a work option. It's laughable. It is. But it's par for the course. These guys, they cannot be honest with their colleagues. The Republican leadership cannot be honest with their colleagues. They always get caught, man. They always get caught. Or they maybe they're to the point where they don't think it's being dishonest because, at some point the other side should just expect it. But we never do in any meaningful way to be able to actually mount a resistance to it. But one of the Republican narratives that we've been able to deconstruct is this 3.5. Well, it was 3.6 last month. Arkansas's unemployment rate 3.6%, and boy, the Republican establishment was going around talking about how great that was, and now that means everything else is perfect, and it is record low. Record low reached for the fourth month in a row. It's pretty wild when you think about it. Now we are at a 3.5% in the month of April, compared with 3.6 in the month of March, fourth straight month. Arkansas's April unemployment rate is the 13th lowest in the country. I think about that for a second. That is astonishing to me. And yeah, there's something about the numbers that don't seem right to me, but, don't take my word for it. Just look at the broad picture. What is wrong with the picture that we have the 13th lowest unemployment rate in the nation, but we have 1 million people who are on Medicaid out of 3 million that live here? Now, 300,000 of those folks are on the expanded Medicaid, many of who are able to work adults with no dependents. Many of those who are not working. And with a 3.5% unemployment rate, the other question has got to be asked, did somebody build 500, 1,000 McDonald's somewhere that we're not aware of? I mean, how in the world is it that low? And if you talk to people, that it doesn't feel like it's that low. I mean, there are good job opportunities, don't misunderstand me. I mean, if you can show up to work on time and pass a drug test, I mean, the sky's the limit for you at this point. What is wrong with the picture? 10% of the people in our state, folks, are on this expanded Medicaid. It talks about, let's see here. They quote Packow here. Hang on one second. Let's see. Several economic indicators are improving at the same time, according to Mervyn Jabarig, interim director for the Center of Business and Economic Research at the U of A. Gross domestic product growth is positive. Small business sentiment is up. Housing market indexes are up, and consumer sentiment has been about as high as it's been since before the recession. But listen to this. Here we go. There is still some slack in the labor market. Now, isn't that weird? There's still some slack. Now, I don't think they're talking about the 3% slack that there is in the labor market. I mean, because at 3.5%, you are supposedly at full employment. Right? Quote, some people are still working part-time, and there are still some discouraged workers, Jabarig said. Quote, so there is still some room for us to reduce the unemployment rate while growing the labor force. Here we go. This is a key, though, growing the labor force. That's what has happened in the past few months here in Arkansas. An unemployment rate of 3.5% is in the range of full employment, Packow said. Full employment is the state of the economy where all who are able and willing to work are employed. All who are able and willing to work are employed. You got to read between the lines here. Now, what does that statement tell us? Well, that tells us that there are people who are who are able but not willing. Can we not deduce from that full employment? Now, that's a weird definition. That wouldn't be my definition of full employment. I mean, if the government... If that's the government's definition, hey, everybody who wants a job has one. We're fully employed. Okay, all right. I mean, I guess that's why you don't care about 300,000 able-to-work adults who can't pay for their insurance. And if they'll just work 30 hours a week, they wouldn't qualify for free insurance. Full employment is the state of the economy where all who are able and willing to work are employed. So there are people. Now, that could be a very wealthy person who doesn't need to work. But that is the exception. I think it's safe to speculate that would be the exception. We do have people who are able to work and are not willing to work. That is an issue. That's not to say that there aren't some skilled mismatches. He goes on to say some areas of the state have much higher unemployment rates than others. The opportunities aren't always evenly distributed. All right, so I'm going to pause there. Okay, now this was an article about how great everything was, how great the unemployment rate is. Okay, but we're going to go to another article. But before we go to there, I want you to think back with me. A couple weeks ago, the governor had a big press conference with the Chinese, brought them in, 800 jobs going to St. Francis County. 800 jobs, by the way. Are there 800 skilled workers in St. Francis County right now who do not have jobs and all of a sudden are going to have jobs? That's the question that they don't really want to answer because it exposes this entire argument that government creates jobs as a complete myth. And we're going to give away all this taxpayer money. St. Francis County is going to give away all this taxpayer money in the tune of incentives. By the way, then they're going to complain that Chapter C corporate tax returns are down. But anyway, and they're going to pretend like, and this is the perception that they lead with. The perception they lead with is that every job we create when we give away taxpayer money through corporate welfare is somebody who was sitting on their couch yesterday and is now in the workforce today. Somebody who was on welfare yesterday but is now in the workforce today. And folks, that is not true for the most part. The overwhelming majority of the people who will fill those jobs are already working right now in Arkansas. I can promise you that. Where are they going to come from? Well, they have now been, I've been saying for a while. I've been saying for a long time we are in a skilled labor crisis. Well, in the article in the Gazette by Brandon Mulder, headline State Touts Foreign Investment Growth. It's out of Pine Bluff. Arkansas jobs that are attributable to foreign investments in the state have grown by 41.5%, a growth rate that now leads the country, state officials said Friday. So these are numbers from state officials, 41.5%. And they're all bragging about this. Governor Hutchinson attributed the growth to the aggressive international marketing of the state's business opportunities over the past 2 years. Okay. All right. I'll give him that. I will cede the fact that China has been here twice, right? He's negotiated with the Communist Chinese to bring in their companies. Absolutely, his trips over to China and putting the office up and don't we have an office now in London or something? Yeah, sure. Okay. That press conference, in some way, shape, or form, was a result of him going over there, right? His aggressive international marketing, governor's trips, that sort of thing. They got it all from one province, the Shandong province. But we get down here kind of towards the end, okay? And we start talking about Michael Preston. You know who Michael Preston is? He's the executive director of the Economic Development Commission. Michael Preston, Joe, he's the guy that in the press conference. Can you find this and cue this up? He's the guy that looked at the Chinese, and he said to the Chinese, "We got, find that it's on the desktop somewhere." Mike Preston, he's the head of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, right? And he was at this press conference, and he says, "Hey, we got this legislator from St. Francis County here. We got this legislator. We got blah, 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 blah." And then he looks at the Chinese and he says, "These are all your representatives and now. These are your senators. These are your representatives now. And you can, if you call them, they're going to answer." And I thought, what an objectively false statement. No. Did naturalized citizenship come with the taxpayer contribution to the Chinese companies? It's unbelievable that he said that. I mean, but that's the kind of mentality that they have here. It's very much a progressive mentality. Listen.
Chairman Chu, Rui, welcome to Arkansas. And Chairman, you'll look out in the audience and you'll see multiple members of the governor's cabinet. We're also here to support you. You'll see multiple members of the state legislative assembly. They're here to support you, and specifically Senator Caldwell, Senator Ingram, Representative Murdoch, Representative Hollowell. These are your senators and your representatives now. You call on them, and they're going to help you. Guarantee it. Senator English, I saw you out there too. Thank you for being here as well.
There we go. They're your senators and representatives. No, they are not. But, there's a lot of money at stake here, so I guess, republics don't really matter. Mike Preston in this article, okay? Mike Preston in this article says the governor said he plans to travel back to Germany and France later this year, as well as the Shandong province for a third time because we have so many relationships now. But the article goes on. Listen, here we go. Here it is. At this stage, Mike Preston said the number one priority now will be ensuring the state can provide an educated and capable workforce in face of the state's historically low 3.5% unemployment rate. Okay, so now these two articles are linked. Okay, we had 3.5% unemployment article. Now we're referencing 3.5% unemployment. Preston said, quote, "We have the jobs, we have a lot of momentum now, but we have to focus on what's next in making ourselves better. We have to focus on educating our workforce. We have to find workers. That's our challenge now in economic development." They have to find the workers. Now, what have we been saying? Now, listen, I don't know. Maybe Mike Preston knows something different than the public education system that can't get people ready for work after having them for 13 years training them for jobs of some kind, educating them. Maybe he knows something we don't. Maybe he's got some kind of job training. I heard today through the grapevine that China wants to take some of their initial employees for this textile plant or whatever and actually bring them over to China for a while. But we have Mike Preston here admitting that we do have a skilled labor crisis here in the state. And yet, instead of having the workforce, I would still disagree with it. But even if the process was reversed, because what is happening here, this is an admission that they are going to steal the employees away from other existing Arkansas businesses. That is what is about to happen here. That is what happens every time ASA has a press conference and gives away your money to these private corporations. They come here and they steal employees from existing manufacturing jobs. They are being so dishonest with you. They are advancing a notion that says every job we're creating is a new job. We've gone from somebody who's on the couch and now they're in a factory making $15, $16 an hour. That is not the case. They are going to be able to hire away at a higher wage, a government-subsidized wage from existing Arkansas businesses. Now, you tell me how moral that is when you take an existing Arkansas business that pays existing Arkansas tax rates that are ridiculously high with ridiculous regulations. We have a General Assembly that doesn't care anything about small business unless they can use small business as an excuse to raise your internet taxes. And they're going to use that money, give it to the communist Chinese so that they can come over here and that they can recruit people away from existing Arkansas businesses using their own tax dollars against them. And then Governor Hutchinson and Mike Preston go out there and act like they know something about economic development, which they really don't. They know how to say the word or the phrase economic development. They get to go around the press because they are absolutely brain dead, parrots this. You read the headline, 800 new jobs coming to St. Francis County. You accept it. 10 years from now, we will see. right? Eventually, we're supposed to get 800 jobs. Will it ever happen? I'm not so sure. But the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics down at the University of Central Arkansas, they've got extensive paper. They wrote a whole paper on this, how this strategy of economic development rarely stimulates the economy. More times than not, there is absolutely no impact on the economy. And then there's examples of it actually hurting the economy because existing Arkansas businesses have to compete with the government. Existing Arkansas businesses are now competing with government-subsidized companies from China. That is the philosophy of economic development of Governor Hutchinson and others, and it's ridiculous. And they're admitting here they don't even have the workforce. They don't even have the job. They don't even have the workforce they need. So where is it going to come? It's going to come from existing Arkansas businesses whose tax dollars are being used to make it harder, to subvert their own companies. We have to take a break. Back in a minute.
Whether you're looking for a small desktop copier and printer, thinking about adding color to your documents, or considering a document management solution, Total Document Solutions is there to help. In business for decades, Total Document Solutions is an independently owned company that specializes in the ability to provide a high level of service in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas River Valley, Southwest Missouri, and Southeast Kansas as an exclusive Platinum Authorized Sales Agent for the Xerox Corporation. At Total Document Solutions, they offer customers technology services to improve business results. Their dedicated sales team has the unmatched industry knowledge, professionalism, and expertise needed to address the unique challenges of your business. Total Document Solutions is independent, local, and well-connected to serve your office products and document needs. Call them today at 479-575-0770. That's 479-575-0770 for your Total Document Solutions. Do you need to advertise your business product or service, but not sure what the best choice is? Folks, allow me to introduce you to talk radio. You're listening to it right now. Talk radio is one of the most unique mediums in all of advertising because it actually works. It gets the information you want to the people you want to get it to. And by the way, those people are educated, well-informed decision makers of their household, and most of them have disposable income. If this is a target audience for your business, then you have to consider advertising on my show, The Paul Harrell Program. We have options for most any budget and can provide you with exciting opportunities to grow your business. We can put your message across the state, or we can help you locally. Call 870-275-9755 if you have any questions. That's 870-275-9755, or visit my website, paulharrell.com, and click on Advertise.
This is Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. The Republican Party of Arkansas has something called a platform, and it's basically what they believe. Things like lower taxes, right to own and bear arms, encouraging individual responsibility and initiative. Yet in this legislative session, we see Republicans fighting against the right to own and bear arms by amending over and over the campus carry bill. We see instead of lowering taxes and fees being raised 8 different times. We see the attack against individual responsibility and initiative by continuing to embrace Obamacare Medicaid expansion called Arkansas Works. So what we need is not conservatives or not Republicans, because those names don't seem to mean anything anymore. We need platform Republicans. This is Donnie Copeland for Common Sense and Liberty.
I want to continue with this, but I want to make a point of clarification here. Okay, welcome back to the program. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. All right, so, I'm talking about a Republican Party platform, and you've heard me say that a lot. We need platform Republicans. As a matter of fact, conservative, limited government Republicans, you guys need to start just calling. You heard there the network broadcast there. You heard Donnie Copeland, former state representative. He's picked up this phrase that you heard here, platform Republicans, okay? Because that's what they really are, okay? And I think that's what because that's what you're campaigning on. Platform Republicans and the ones that got the voting record that reflect it, they're honest because that's how you campaign. Congratulations, but you guys are not in leadership yet, and that's a problem, okay? But I do want to clarify, all that's well and good. What I am most concerned about, and the only reason we're getting off in the weeds about what an establishment Republican is and what a platform Republican is, what a limited government conservative is, whatever, we're getting off in the weeds because it's much harder to convince people that they've been deceived, right? I mean, it's a difficult thing. What was the Mark Twain quote? It's easier to trick somebody than to convince them that they've been deceived or something. Was that what it was? Anyway, bottom line is this. I am against progressive leftist Democrat policies, period. I am against the idea that government creates jobs. I am for free markets. I am for voluntary cooperation among men. I'm for less regulation. I'm for less taxes. These are things that are in the Republican Party platform, okay? Give the Democrats credit. They're going along with these establishment Republicans because they actually agree with them. They're going along with them, for most part, because they're at least being honest. They believe in these policies. They believe that these policies are the best, right? It's the Republicans that campaign on the completely opposite way, and then they don't have and then they get in there and they bow. And I said this last week, but we got to really explore this because this is truly what it is. They are worshiping power, and it looks like it's an R, and it's at the beginning or end, or however, in front of or at the end of Asa Hutchinson's name. That's what they're worshiping. They're worshiping the R at the end of his name. The Republican R. Instead of standing up for the constitutional institution of the legislative branch and more importantly, representing your constituents the way you told them, the way you led them to believe that you believed. Instead of, well, you don't understand, down here's a complicated mess, like with James Sturge. Well, you don't understand. Sometimes you just got to go to the bathroom immediately. You got to stand up. You got to go to the bathroom immediately when your name's about to be called, and if you're not in your seat, you're going to kill the bill that you just voted for. Ladies and gentlemen, they think that you will never find out what they do down there. That's what they think. And I'm here to tell you that if you keep listening to this show, I promise you we will continue to tell you what they don't want you to know. What some of them, they don't have, they in their wildest dreams, they don't think that you're going to find out what they did. In your name. We're going to continue to speak truth to power. And we are going to continue to we would continue to invite you to use this program as a medium. And to tell your friends, we need as many people listening as possible. We're broadcasting a radio across Arkansas as well as Facebook Live, paulharrell.com, YouTube. And YouTube's the best way to share our videos, our ones that are cut up, our smaller ones, little chunks. So we would encourage you to do that. Those of you who are listening, you can always get the show live at paulharrell.com. Go there now. If your station only carries an hour of the program today, go to paulharrell.com. 870-275-9799. Liberty Machine. One more hour. Back in a minute.
Rush, Glenn, Sean, and Paul. This is Jonesboro's 1013 FM News Talk, KBTM.
about tax cuts. Well, then what else is it? What else is there? It must be about the opposite of that thing that you just mentioned then, right? The phone number, if you want to text me or give me a phone call, 870-275-9799. That's 870-275-9799. Again, can you imagine having our leaders actually say, people of Arkansas are overtaxed? You know why they don't say that? Because if they did, I think they'd be, well, what are you going to do about it? That'd be the next question. Oh, they are? They're overtaxed? Okay, what are you going to do about it? I mean, instead, the mentality is, well, we've already done so much. We've cut $150 million. We have a $4.5 billion state budget that Governor Hutchinson has increased almost $500 million in 3 years. I mean, let me think about this for a second. Joe, think about this. He wants to get reelected on a $150 million tax cut, and 50 of it we haven't even seen. 25 of it we won't even see till next year, and then we get another 25 at some point. He has increased spending $133 million one year, $140-something the next year, $165 this next year. Okay, it's almost $500 million he's increased spending. Could you imagine if we got a $500 million tax break over the last 3 years instead of $150 million? 50 of that we have not even seen yet. I guess they're counting on people not realizing that Arkansas operates on a $4.5 billion budget, but when you count in the federal money that comes back to us, it's actually a $27 to $28 billion. Did you know that? $27 to $28 billion. They all like to talk about, oh, we're a small state. We're only 4 point. No. It's really more like $30 billion to run this state when you look at the federal money that comes in. People don't realize that, and that increases. And when that increases, our dependency on the feds increase. Our dependence, we have a crisis of mentality here. And the people of Arkansas, it is not that we don't want any government. It's not that we don't want anarchy. And the reason I have to make this clarification is because I know there's still some Democrats that listen to this show because they're masochists, and then there are some people who are kind of on the fence, and they always love to say, anytime you start talking about limited government or sometimes voluntary cooperation among free men, a lot of times I've gotten this response in the last year, oh, so you don't want any government then? No. What? How did you get that from what I just said? No, I don't want it's not that we don't want any government. We like the Constitution. Think that's a pretty good document. Think it gave you specific powers. We just wish you would only do those specific powers mentioned, the enumerated ones. That would be nice, right? I wish the legislature would actually stand up not just for a political party, but actually for its own power constitutionally in Arkansas and push back against the governor and realize, wait a second, and I want you to understand something. You non-platform establishment Republicans are doing the people such a disservice when you go along to get along and you agree to consolidate the authority that you just had and you only get once every 2 years and giving it to the governor and Jim Hendren and Jonathan Dismang and Speaker of the House Gillum for them to pick who they want to be on a special legislature, a special legislature that's going to meet when you're not going to be there, most likely, although I know you can attend. And they'll make decisions, they'll interpret data, and then they're going to give you a packaged up, Governor Asa Hutchinson approved with a pretty little pink bow on top, rainbow-colored, scratch that, a rainbow-colored bow on top, and then you'll be able to vote it up or down. And if you don't like it, you'll be called anti-military, I'm sure, or something. They'll find some reason something that you're totally against if you decide something that's outrageously inaccurate, they can report to the press. You are against X. You're against puppies. You're against little babies. You're against unicorns and elves. I say unicorns and rainbows, but rainbows are real. But anyway, that's what we're going. And in what you saw earlier, the graphic we had up there with those quotes from Governor Hutchinson, you are seeing a sneak peek into what the grand recommendations of the tax farce are actually going to be. And it's going to be whatever he wants. And that's not necessarily about tax.
The maintenance of a free society is a very difficult and complicated thing, and it requires a self-denying ordinance of the most extreme kind. It requires a willingness to put up with temporary evils on the basis of the subtle and sophisticated understanding that if you step in to do something about them, you not only may make them worse, but you will spread your tentacles and get bad results elsewhere.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
You're listening to the Paul Harrell Program, brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
Hey, folks, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for being with us. Happy Monday. This is hour number 2. The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We're building a liberty machine. We got some big news, really an update. You're probably not going to hear this on anywhere else, not this kind of analysis. The task force on tax reform met today for the first time. Now, this is affectionately referred to by me as a tax farce or a task farce or whatever, or a tax farce, whatever. We have Josh Waters. He's on the line with us. He's from Political Strategies. He was there in the meeting room. Josh, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me back.
Yes, I'm really glad you could call. I know you're busy. You're actually going to be speaking in Faulkner County tonight. Where are you speaking tonight? That's
right, at the Faulkner County Republican Committee. It's going to be at the China Garden there in Conway. The meeting will start about 6:30, so encourage any of your listeners in that area, come on out. We'll be doing a legislative review of the session, basically, that just wrapped up.
Okay, good.
And so that's where I'm headed now.
Talk to me a little bit about transparency, first of all. You were in the room, so my first question to you is, was it jam-packed full of lobbyists like we thought it was going to be? Because, they're having it in this building that's a little bit off from where the Capitol is, away from the cameras, the streaming devices that are in many of the rooms over on the House side that are designed to keep the people, not in the dark. So how many people were in that room today?
I don't know how many are in that seats are in that room, but there was probably about the furthest section was all filled up with students there for some type of history day, and so I don't imagine they'll be back at the remaining task force meetings. So if you take just the other people, I don't know the number, but being in those other rooms you talked about that do have cameras, I'd be willing to bet, it might be a tight squeeze, but I think everyone could fit in some of those other committee rooms that do have cameras. And so I'd like to see that going forward. I think it just provides more transparency for the people, so they don't have to have other people to, go down there and record and take notes. They can do it themselves if they want.
Yeah.
And that recording's out there for, I guess as long as the website's up. And so they can go in their spare time and go watch.
Yeah.
And so
you raised a great point.
We'll see where that goes.
You would say that, them saying that there wouldn't be enough room if they did it. I mean, you would disagree with that. You think there'd be plenty of room. I'm thinking of the building or the room That's actually across from Revenue and Tax. I think that's a fairly large committee room. I mean, it was jam-packed full of people. Several controversial bills went through in Judiciary, I believe. Or, and you just got to wonder why they can't just do it where there's some cameras.
Yeah, I think based on the audience that was there today and being in those other rooms, I think people would have been able to fit.
Okay.
So I don't know if they're considering that moving forward or what they expect turn out to be later, but I'd like for them to move it to get the video cameras set up on them.
All right, we're talking with Josh Waters. The next meeting, so today was a meeting. It was a relatively short meeting, right? What did they do exactly?
Yeah, it was about 30 minutes, I think. They just came in there, and the Speaker of the House, Jeremy Gillum, started out by just kind of announcing what they were there for, the task force, and then they moved into nominations for chair, and Senator Jim Hendren and Representative Lane Jean were elected co-chairs of the committee. There's no one else nominated, so
what a shocker! I'm so surprised.
So they were. It wasn't even a voice vote. It was a vote by acclamation. So I guess that is technically a voice vote. But then they went on from there. And I
can't wait till they start doing a vote by telekinesis. Because and we just trust the the clairvoyant to record the vote properly. I'm sorry, Josh. Go ahead. I don't mean making jokes. Go ahead.
No, it's there's no way to challenge that the vote today. So basically they just went through. Then each person did somewhat of a kind of introduction who they were, because it was Senate and House members, so some people may not know each other as well. And so they went through and made introductions, and kind of a few just mentioned they're glad to be there and optimistic to be on the committee and ready to get to work, that kind of thing. And then Senator Elliott, they went into adoption of the rules, and Senator Elliott asked a question and about if there is going to be public input allowed. As you know, a lot of these committee meetings that they have during the regular session, people can sign up or sign in and testify on a bill or speak for or against a bill, that kind of thing. And so she was basically asking, would that work this same way? And Senator Hendren told her, public input is welcome. It's appreciated. And it's kind of, I think, going forward, depending on what their focus on, it might have to be limited. But there will be an opportunity for public input, and it was even encouraged.
Okay.
So that was, somewhat encouraging to know that they will be seeking public input, and people will be able to come and
how much are they going to
make
get?
Their voice heard.
Do they talk about money at all? How much they're going to be making from the taxpayer by doing this little special committee of legislators?
No, I didn't hear any dollar values, but they approved for expenses for their per diem. I don't have that number in front of me. I used to know that, but so they'll approve for their per diem and for traveling down there. And then they approved to allow the committee, if they need to hire experts, consultants, that kind of thing, moving forward. They approved for that to be an option.
Consultants,
basically.
hiring consultants. Because why should the legislators actually dive into the numbers and understand them? Why not get the consultants, pay them these hefty contracts, and then they can put the data they want in front of them? Obviously, I'm very skeptical, Josh, about this whole situation. I know that you know this. But it's very, very good information. So you're telling me, in summary, they met, they selected the chairs, and then they voted on making sure they get their per diem when they're down there, their taxpayer, expense per diem. And is that pretty much it? Did anything else happen?
Well, they not really. They set the next meeting will be Wednesday, June 7th, and so they set that, and they did say that they would have an initial report out. I think the end of this year, and then their final report will come out, I guess, the end of next year, going into the next legislative session.
Interesting.
So then they wrapped it up.
We got some audio here. I feel like this is pretty revealing audio. Joe, so at the beginning of the tax farce, Speaker of the House Jeremy Gillum, he was presiding over the meeting before he passed the torch to Senator Hendren and Representative Lane Jean. And I'll get your comments on this, Josh, but let's listen to what he said. And let's just listen, and then I'll ask you the question. Go ahead.
It's going to be, I think, a very robust debate that will take place over the next year and a half as to our tax policy here in Arkansas. And I know a lot has been kind of written about kind of the mandate, so to speak, and it seems to always be mentioned that it's about which tax cuts are going to be put forward in the next General Assembly, and I think you are all familiar with the fact that that is not necessarily the overriding mandate of this task force, but it's to look at reform and relief and making Arkansas competitive in our surrounding areas to make sure that we have a viable tax policy. And so,
that's Speaker of the House Jeremy Gilliam. At the beginning of the meeting, after they recognized the students, he said, and it's interesting, he said tax cuts, not necessarily the mandate, not the mandate. And I wonder, why do you think, Josh, he felt the need to clarify? Why does he? Because it is a clarification. It's almost like he's saying, the reports are talking about we're going to recommend tax cuts, but that's not the mandate. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, honestly, when you think back to the regular session, several people filed or wanted to file tax cut bills, but they were basically told, no, wait and let the task force handle it. And so if this, if they're not going to, at least consider moderate, tax cuts in this, I think that is kind of outside of what people anticipated or wanted. And so you kind of hear that, it's not just about tax cuts, it's about, making it fair. And you've heard other comments like that. So that's kind of confusing, it's a full picture thing. I get that, but I think there is a mandate for tax cuts because a lot of tax cut bills were deferred for this tax reform task force. And so I definitely hope to see some tax cuts come through the task force and get recommended out and drafted and get passed.
I do as well. I would love for them to, to deliver on the platform and the promises that they've made. But I too remember you had folks, some of them who were on the tax farce, and they had bills that they didn't run because they went along with what the governor said on day number 2 of the session. Hey, we're not going to do this. We're going to have a tax farce or whatever. But it's just incredible to me that the Speaker of the House feels the need to clarify that we're not talking about tax cuts here. We're and what's interesting to me, Josh, is one is much easier to define. Tax cut. Now, they could still define a tax cut, and I could disagree with it because it could be a revenue-neutral tax cut, okay? But it still conveys a certain message to any reasonable person, any objective person. Oh, okay, a tax cut. But then he says he changes it to overall tax reform, and I'm just curious. That could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it could mean more money going into the government, i.e., more money coming from us to the government, and that's my fear.
Yeah, I think that's a fair fear to have. I think part of that maybe is I know they want to look at a lot of these exemptions that are in the code, which I think is good. Maybe that's the fairness part they're talking about. But, there was some people who were saying, or a lot of people maybe who were arguing that the internet sales tax was fair, the gas tax hike was fair. And so fair is like you said, depending on your side of the argument, you can say what's fair or not fair. But a tax cut, if there's a cut in the income tax rate, that's pretty clear on what that is and what that means.
Yeah.
If there's a cut in the sales tax rate, that's, a lot more clear. So I guess time will tell.
One last question. We're talking with Josh Waters. There were more people in that room than are on the task farce. And I guess my question is, some of those people were on this other committee that kind of surprised people. They didn't really know what it was for. It's like a a committee that Speaker Gillum picked about economic policy. Do we have any more insight into what exactly those guys are doing there?
Well, that wasn't really clearly defined today. In the meeting, they announced, they would be there, and I don't even think they necessarily announced who they were, ran around and introduced themselves like everyone else. But, what I've heard in the speculation is that, this committee is kind of coming alongside the task force and will be there at all the meetings and kind of take the recommendations and then try to put those into action. And so it seemed like maybe they're trying to say, well, this is the task force is for recommendations, and then the subcommittee maybe will draft some of the legislation. And so it's still not really clear, at least hasn't been clearly defined in the task force what the subcommittee's role will be interacting with them going forward. But that is something I've heard that could be their role.
Josh Waters from Political Strategies. I appreciate the update, sir, and I appreciate you being there on the ground, and I'd love to do it again soon. Of course, the next task force meeting is on June the 7th, correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Wednesday, June 7th.
All right. Well, you be safe.
Yep.
Have fun tonight in Faulkner County. We'll talk to you soon, sir.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And, folks, who knows, with all the consultants and the contracts and, whoever's going to get the contract for the tax farce and recommend what the governor wants them to recommend. Because, the government's going to be paying them to give them the answer they want. That's how these consultants work. I just wonder if Jim Hendren will hire Grover Norquist. It's just a thought, He was no fan of Grover Norquist when Grover Norquist was calling his military tax shift shell game a tax increase. But who knows? Maybe he'll hire Grover Norquist. We have to go to break. And to some conservatives out there, that actually really scares you. And I get that. It looks like I know about Grover Norquist. 870-275-9799. Back in just a moment.
You've probably thought about getting your real estate license, but you keep putting it off. Don't put it off any longer. The Northeast Arkansas Real Estate School makes learning the business easy with enthusiastic, interactive, real-world solutions, and you can do it all with only 6 days of class. Go to neaprofessionalschools.com and register for the next class. Financing is available. They'll travel anywhere in Arkansas to teach you everything you need to know to become a licensed real estate agent, or take the class online at your own pace. That's neaprofessionalschools.com or 870-336-4155. Mention the Paul Harrell program and get 10% off. Don't put it off any longer. neaprofessionalschools.com.
Protecting your business means protecting your data. But is your business really prepared to handle the growing threat of things like cybercriminals and ransomware? At iTex, they're committed to deploying the best security solutions to protect your business and your bottom line. Security threats are constantly evolving. So are security needs. Be proactive now and equip your business with the best cybersecurity available with iTex. Call them today for a free consultation at 870-336-9778. That's 870-336-9778 or itexusa.com.
This is Dan Sullivan with the Liberty Moment. Government is not the author or source of our rights, and you don't make America great again by giving one man in Washington all the power. You make America great again by recovering a constitutional republic where Washington is populated by people who are servant leaders who want to return power to the people and communities. Because what makes America great again in this country are its Rotary clubs, small businesses, churches, schools, fire departments, and little leagues across this land. God bless the people who hear this truth. Senator Ben Sasse.
Paid for by Sullivan for Arkansas.
Buy, sell, and trade at Triple R Pawn in Ash Flat. Firearms, computers, sporting goods, musical instruments, tools, jewelry, and everything else you can think of. It's all at Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat. Gun enthusiasts, log on now to triplrpawn.com and browse their amazing inventory. That's triplrpawn.com. You can also call them at 870-994-PAWN. That's 870-994-7296. Let the great team at Triple R Pawn help you find what you're looking for. That's Triple R Pawn at the Light in Ash Flat, triplrpawn.com, or call 870-994-PAWN. Arkansas small businesses are tired of taxes that are too high and regulations that work as obstacles to small business success. If you own a small business, it's time to take action. Now, I'm not talking about the local chambers of commerce. I'm talking about an organization that's actually run by small business owners and are fighting for small businesses right here in the state of Arkansas. They're called Conduit for Action, and they're on your side. Conduit for Action is here not to get something from the government, but to be left alone by the government. Think of them as your personal advocate for limited government at the Capitol in Little Rock. If you're tired of all the politicians talking with no results and ready for action, start outsourcing your government affair needs with Conduit for Action. Go now to conduitforaction.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforaction.org and stand up for small business in Arkansas.
Need to get something off your chest? Then call or text Paul now, 870-275-9799.
All right, we brought you this story on Friday, and now it's up over at conduitforaction.org. We even get a phrase used, Marble Palace. That phrase is being used over there. That's just warms my heart. How Representative James Sturch killed special election reform by walking out. We told you this story on Friday. It's a huge story. And, it highlights one Arkansas legislator named James Sturch who kills a bill he had just voted for by a procedural move after looking at his cell phone, talking with his seatmate. And anyway, it's fascinating. The video is now up, so you can see it for yourself, exactly what we're talking about. It's up at conduitforaction.org right now. It's a YouTube video of the entire thing happening down at the Marble Palace, down at the Capitol in Little Rock. And you need to check it out because this is the kind of stuff that we got to stop. And certainly we got to hold people accountable when they do stuff like that. You vote for something and then you walk out of the room. I mean, come on. Come on. And it was special election reform, which is another thing. I mean, it's a big issue, but it's pretty black or white. You're either for it for reasons listed or against it for reasons listed. The CFA article starts like this, and we're going to talk Arkansas Works work requirements here in a minute. I'm going to summarize it for you. And I got a smile about it because, I mean, it's just these guys are so, to me anyway, it's just so patently obvious how they do things the same way every time, and it's based in deception. It's based in deception. Cities, counties, and school districts have special elections at random times. We just told you last hour about Pea Ridge. They're trying to bring back a millage that just failed on May the 9th. They now say they're going to try again in February of next year. It costs taxpayers an average of $200,000 per year to hold these elections. Taxpayers spent over $7.4 million on special elections from 1981 to 2016. It talks about Dave Wallace's bill. And James Sturch, he helped defeat this reform on the House floor days before the session ended by walking out after first voting for the bill. To fully understand what Sturch did, one must understand what a sound the ballot challenge is. It is a procedural move in the Arkansas legislature to challenge close votes. In the House, bills are voted on by electronic buttons at each representative seat. They can select yes, no, or present, or choose not to vote. On each bill, the Speaker will announce, cast up the ballot. When everyone has voted, and the total number of votes for, against, and present will display on the screen in the House chamber. If a bill receives 51 votes, it passes. However, if at least 5 representatives raise their hand for a sound the ballot challenge, the parliamentarian will call the roll of all the yes votes. For a yes vote to stand under a sound the ballot challenge, a representative must be in their seat when their name is called. If a member is not in their seat, then their yes vote is struck and subtracted from the total. For example, if a bill passes with 52 votes, at least 51 people must be in their seats when their names are called. This video shows exactly what transpired during the Sound the Ballot challenge. It ends with Representative James Sturch leaving his seat 28 seconds before his name is called and killing the bill after voting yes originally. And 2 minutes later, he's back in his seat for the next bill. Yeah, he just had to go to the bathroom. He couldn't have held it. He couldn't hold it any longer. That's right, Joe. I wonder if that would be his excuse. Back in a minute. tax cuts. I wish people like Senator Bart Hester would have gone ahead and ran your legislation to actually cut taxes instead of waiting on a tax. I know he's on the tax farce, but I wish he would have gone ahead and just forced Republicans to expose themselves as not being conservatives and voted for it. I understand even Charlie Collins had legislation he wanted to run but didn't, because I'm pretty sure, right? He had, but he didn't. He backed off because they listened to the governor and they went ahead. It's not necessarily about tax cuts, though. It's at some point the lapdog legislature is going to have to stand up, but I guess we got to wait till 2019 to see if they'll do it again, and they probably won't. In the meantime, Governor Hutchinson's going to run. Again, he's probably going to win unless somebody does like my Facebook earlier today. This is what I posted on Facebook. Hang on one second. I got to find it. Yeah, here it is. In announcing his bid for re-election, Governor Asa Hutchinson said this about lowering taxes and his task force. We want to concentrate on efficiencies in government. We want to emphasize pro-growth tax policies. That's not always about tax cuts. It's also about fairness. So I mentioned that stuff about a sneak peek, and Patty writes, yeah, good luck with that. I pray that a stand-up Republican will run against Asa Hutchinson. If not, I will vote Democrat for the first time in my life, Patty on Facebook writes. But I do expect Governor to win. He's a transition governor. We're not a red state. We are a purple state, masquerading as a red state. And we are an extremely moderate state. They are like extreme in their moderation, which really means they're just liberal. They're just wolves in sheep clothing. They're just trying to convince you there's something they're not. And we got to take a break. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program. The Liberty Machine rolls on. Back in just a moment.
The Paul Harrell program.
The Northeast Arkansas Real Estate School offers continuing education classes for your local boards of realtors, local offices, and will even offer discounts for large groups. They'll come to you, set up shop, teach anywhere in Arkansas, and as always, make learning fun and motivating. The Northeast Arkansas Real Estate School is licensed by the Arkansas Real Estate Commission and must adhere to their rules and regulations. Give them a call today at 870-336-4155. That's 870-336-4155, or find out about class times and schedules at neaprofessionalschools.com. That's neaprofessionalschools.com. Mention my name, Paul, and receive 10% off.
This is Common Sense and Liberty. I'm Donnie Copeland. The Republican Party of Arkansas has something called a platform, and it's basically what they believe. Things like lower taxes, right to own and bear arms, encouraging individual responsibility and initiative. Yet in this legislative session, we see Republicans fighting against the right to own and bear arms by amending over and over the campus carry bill. We see instead of lowering taxes and fees being raised 8 different times. We see the attack against individual responsibility and initiative by continuing to embrace Obamacare Medicaid expansion called Arkansas Works. So what we
The Paul Harrell program.
Joe, one more time. I want for the listeners that are just joining us, one more time, I would like for you to play the Jeremy Gillum audio. This is from earlier today at the tax farce. Listen carefully to what Jeremy Gillum, Speaker of the House, said at the beginning of the tax farce meeting. Now, keep in mind, this is supposed to be about cutting your taxes. I mean, this is how they sold it to conservatives. And I know later on they started saying, well, we got to look at reform and we got to look at getting rid of exemptions. All right, that's fine. Then why does Jeremy Gillum, if the public perception is that this isn't about tax cuts, then why does Jeremy Gillum feel the need to say this?
It's going to be, I think, a very robust debate that will take place over the next year and a half as to our tax policy here in Arkansas. And I know a lot has been kind of written about kind of the mandate, so to speak. And it seems to always be mentioned that it's about which tax cuts are going to be put forth in the next General Assembly.
All right, stop. A lot of the discussion, what you've been writing, are the mandates, so to speak, about what are the next tax cuts that are going to be put forth in the next general session. Go ahead, Joe.
I think you are all familiar with the fact that that is not necessarily the overriding mandate.
Stop. I think you are all familiar with the fact that is not necessarily the overriding mandate. He's saying that tax cuts, what tax cuts are they going to be coming out of this? That's not the, quote, overriding mandate, end quote. Keep going.
So to look at reform and relief and making Arkansas competitive.
Okay, stop. We have to make it. We have to look at reform and relief. Now, notice he doesn't say we have to look at reform and tax cuts. He says reform and relief. Now, relief for what? And people may really be upset with me when I'm parsing these words, but they may think that the government is under stress and needs relief. And they do. That's why they try to get so much of your money. So you take a word that can be fairly specific, a tax cut, and you change it to, well, that's not the overriding mandate. We are going to focus on reform and relief. Well, it could be relief to the state highway fund. Oh, that's under stress right now. They need more money. Let's give it to them. And so here's the whiteboard. Joe, go to wide angle here. All right, here we go. Haven't gone over to this today. This is the tax farce's options, okay? Their options are this. Number one, they can cut, meaning spending. They can cut spending, or cut government, but if you cut spending, that is a reduction in the size of government, okay? They're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. That's been Asa Hutchinson has made that abundantly clear. They're not going to cut money because cutting money means that you have less money going to the government. And that way, the governor couldn't continue to increase spending every year that he's been here like he has. So I don't think they're going to do that. They're paranoid about their revenue. It's their precious revenue. Number two, shift. Are they going to shift? So number one, cut. Number two, shift. All right, so they've already done this once. That's kind of their overall philosophy, is to shift, to try to make you think your taxes went down when they really went up. And they'll do really bogus strategies, like they'll talk about veterans and military retirees, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, you're a military retiree. We're going to bat for you." Now, if you're a military retiree that likes to download books on Amazon or things like that, your taxes are going up too. That's what they never told you. Well, military retirees, they download ringtones and they download things digitally. They created a brand new digital downloads tax for movies and books and stuff in order to pay for the military tax cut. And all they did was shift things around. But you ended up paying more taxes, but they claim, but you got a tax cut. This from the folks that are now really anti-exemption. We are anti-loophole. We're anti-exemption. You just created an exemption with the military retiree tax cut instead of treating all Arkansans equally. And don't get me wrong, I love our troops, but they're hypocrites. They are giant hypocrites. Number three, raise. Now they have done that. They've already they raise your digital download tax. They raise candy and soda. They raise tires taxes, and then they created a new tax on tires. And they attempted to go after even more money with the internet tax. Now, so I mean, which one is this tax farce going to actually do? They're going to cut? No, they're not going to cut. They're not cutting. They're going to shift? Possibly, but within that shift, they're going to raise. They're going to raise our taxes, folks. And that Jeremy Gillum audio you just heard is proof. Hey, whoa. I know there's been some publications talking about how our mandate is to cut taxes and what bill are we going to put forth out of this tax farce that's going to actually lower your taxes next General Assembly. But I think everybody here, listen, I think everybody here, and the people that are there, people like, people that I'm told that are, big conservatives like Bart Hester or others. And the only reason I mentioned Senator Hester by name because he was going to put forth actual tax legislation, we were told. And Asa said no, and he said okay, and now he's on the tax farce. And he just heard Gillum say that the overall mandate is not tax cuts. I mean, that would upset me. That would upset me greatly. This whole thing, man, is the whole thing is a psychological operation that they run on these guys. It really is. Cut, shift, or raise. Cut, shift, or raise. Which one are they going to do? They're not going to cut. They are going to raise. They might shift. That's my prediction. I mean, this is... Anyway, that's our whiteboard for the week. We're going to revisit this throughout the week, but go to paulharrell.com, Facebook Live, YouTube if you want any more. If you want to actually see the whiteboard yourself. It's just really frustrating to me. Arkansas Works. We just got done with a special session a few weeks ago. The state seeks this waiver. They have made a huge deal out of it. A big deal. We got to find a way to, all of a sudden, Arkansas Works was no longer fiscally viable. We've been saying that forever. A program that had 215,000 people on it and was never supposed to have more than 215,000 people on it, had 340,000 people on it. That's unsustainable. A guaranteed taxpayer-funded revenue stream to hospitals, insurance companies. I mean, we told you it was going to be a disaster from day one because we know the tendency of government. We know the pitfalls of big government. And so, this is not a surprise to me. Well, in an effort of theater, they wanted the positive headlines. Hey, we recognize there's a problem. We recognize that there's a financial issue here for the taxpayers that we can't sustain this. We're going to have to institute. We're going to have to finally, now that the Trump administration's there, we got to get the work requirements for able to work adults who are getting free health care. So they called everybody down there, and they don't put in the bill, they don't actually put what the request is going to be. They don't actually put what the work requirement for able-to-work adults with no dependents is going to be. And instead, they say, no, we're going to give DHS the authority to make the application. And you know why they did that? Because they didn't want to get in the solution. They didn't want to get in the weeds of what would make a good work requirement, one that would actually have some teeth in it. They didn't want to do that. And DHS is requesting what I would consider to be a progressive, middle-of-the-road. I'm afraid that people, if they lose this care, they're going to, and I don't want to talk to the liberal media about why I believe able-to-work adults should get a job if they want health insurance. You're able to work. You have no kids, right? Paul, the emergency room, the uncompensated care, though, Paul. People, I just want you to know, I'm not setting up a straw man here. Like, that's, but the hospitals and the uncompensated care, $150 million a year. It costs us $150 million a year. Okay, all right. I would support giving you $150 million a year, so we don't have to spend $2 billion. Now, I actually wouldn't support that because every business has something called uncollectibles. And the way you guys do math, your hospital math, is deceptive, and it's downright immoral. If we're going to be honest, hospitals, to get the government officials to give you the talking points, the way you guys calculate losses is ridiculous. It's not accurate. It's not true. And when it's exposed, you don't even know the politicians, because of the campaign contributions, they ignore it. So I got this piece here that exposes the waiver. So they passed it, Look at us. We finally are doing something to repeal, to try to stop Obamacare in Arkansas. And, they've got the wrong leadership. Now, I'm not saying this is all bad. I'm not saying that the vote wasn't of course, you're going to vote for it. All right. They say they're going to try to get work requirements for the second time. Ooh, okay. You're not going to vote against that, I guess. I can understand if you do, I suppose, just because you can't trust any of these guys. Just because Senator Dismang, you can't trust him on this issue. You can't even trust him on taxes. If you can't trust Republicans in Arkansas on tax policy, we know you're not going to be able to trust them on Obamacare, Arkansas Works, and economic development and tort reform, It's like one issue after another. There's just always something wrong with the platform Republican. No, we're normal. The platform Republicans, you guys are the weirdos. The brand of Arkansas Republicanism would not work in Tennessee. Arkansas Republicanism wouldn't work in these other. They just wouldn't work. You'd get voted out of office in a heartbeat. It's only here because we're being haunted by the bureaucratic system that Bill Clinton created. And we refuse to reform it. Okay, so what exactly are they asking DHS for? Well, they got this pretty decent article. It's the Gazette, but I've got a little summary here. I'm going to read you what this is. Okay? All right. This is what it includes. Number one, if you're on Arkansas Works Medicaid expansion, they're going to require, this is what they're asking for, that you spend at least 80 hours a month on approved activities. Okay? 80 hours a month. Now think about that. First of all, not 20 hours. I guess that's essentially 20 hours a week, but not 40 hours a week on a job. When you say work requirement, whoa, a work requirement. All right, so you're gonna get a job. Fantastic, like a job. Nope, 80 hours a month. That's all you got to have. Not even on a job. Notice approved activities. Approved government activities. You can get the 80 hours a month. Now, granted, hear me out. The reason it's 80 hours is because if you work 30 hours a week, you would make too much money to qualify for the private option Obamacare at minimum wage. So if they wanted to end this program, they could have said 30 hours a week. You got to have it. And then when people get it, then they make too much money. So you can do that by 80 hours a month, holding a job for 80 hours a month. Don't go over. Now, this is creating a reverse welfare cliff, by the way. People are not going to go over because they'll lose their insurance, which is keeping people in poverty. Number two, you could take taking high school, college, or vocational classes. So if you're in work training, that counts with your 80 hours a month, and you can so I guess you could, just take classes, vocational classes, and never get a job, and that they would still be able to. But you'd have to go 80 hours a month. C, participating in activities or programs available through the Arkansas Department of Workforce Services. Or D, volunteering. Now, volunteering, I guess, just means what? I don't know. Does that mean volunteering at a church, civic organization? What is that? And, I could totally say, I volunteered 80 hours. Well, a friend friend that I know at this organization, he signed off on it. He said I was up here 80 hours this month. So, I get to keep my free health insurance. All right, so that's the first thing that they're asking for. Number two, how are they going to keep track of all this? How are they going to keep track of this big government population that's already ballooned well over what they said it was going to do. Number two, they're going to build a website. They're asking the government to build a website to track compliance. A verification system, like they had now, like they were supposed to have initially in 2013, a verification system. I'm sorry. It's just, when you say it like that, it's like, oh, okay. Cost of $2.5 million to $3 million, if you believe that figure. Oh, my goodness. You think they're only going to spend $3 million on a website to track all this? Come on. My Idea Arkansas, by the way. Remember that. You can go there and submit your ideas about what a terrible idea this is. But anyway. Number 3. Enrollees who fail to meet work requirement for 3 months will be dropped. Okay, so you really only have to have 80 hours a week. You really only have to have 80 hours a month once every 3 months. Now think about that. Right? Am I reading that right? If you fail to meet the work requirement for 3 months, you'll be dropped. Now, work requirement means holding a job, taking high school, college, or vocational classes, participating in activities or programs available through the Arkansas Department of Workforce Services, or volunteering 80 hours a month. They're obviously not going to expect you in 1 month's time, when you're a month away from losing your insurance, to get more than 80 hours a week to make up for those other 2 months. I don't think they would do that. So you got to have 80 hours of work once every couple of months. What if it rolls over? I bet it does. I bet you can get 20 hours this month and it'll accumulate for the next month. What do you want to bet? Let's see. They can get credit for spending up to 40 hours a month looking for a job and 20 hours a year taking classes on health insurance using the health system or healthy living. Wow. So they are really rolling. I mean, they're really doing a great job giving them every opportunity to do what in many cases is meaningless work. If you spend 40 hours a month looking for a job, that counts as part of your 80 hours. The requirements do not apply to the following. So these apply. Okay, so after all those extensive requirements, right, they don't apply to anyone who's over 50, if you live at home with dependent children, if you're a full-time high school or college student, which, by the way, those exemptions cover more than half of those on the program. More than half of those on the program, these work requirements won't even affect them at all. The enrolled will enter their information into a website. The feds would pay 90% of the cost to build the site by a Princeton, New Jersey corporation. I wonder if it's the same guy in New Jersey that was on Arkansas working at a $700,000 house. Public comments will be taken through June 18th. Forums in Little Rock and Jonesboro will be held. So they're going to spend millions implementing a work suggestion only required for about half of those on the program. No wonder they didn't want to put the work requirement in the actual bill. And instead, they said, this is to just give DHS the authority. And, of course, DHS, they're just full limited government conservatives over there. We got to take a break. Back in just a moment.
Bob Maloney here from ASA News, The Parrot. Breaking news from the Capitol in Little Rock. Over now to our new on-site reporter, Susan Shenanigans. Susan?
Thanks, Bob. The governor has just announced that a Blue Ribbon Task Force is to be formed.
Today, I'm asking your support for a Blue Ribbon Legislative Task Force to be created and directed to recommend further reform.
Now we go live to the chamber to listen in for more information on the task force.
I hereby call this session into order. First on the agenda for today is the formation of the Blue Ribbon Task Force. Is there anyone who would like to give their thoughts on the task force?
Yes, as someone who's deeply conservative, why is the governor choosing the color blue for this task force? Sounds like he's really a Democrat loyalist. Why not a red ribbon to prove he's a true conservative?
Well, I represent Walmart, and we agree with the color of the task force ribbon. The color blue is best consistent with a Walmart brand.
I object to this choice. Blue is the wrong color ribbon for this task force.
Well, who are you?
I am Mr. P.C. Wrights, and I represent Target. and we want the ribbon to be red, not blue.
Hold it right there. This seems like a tough decision. Why not ask the governor to call a special session at a later date for an important decision as this?
I think this is something worth talking about. I motion that we decide the color of the ribbon today.
I second it. Fine. We can decide it now. Does anyone have any other suggestions for the color of the ribbon?
I think the color should be white.
Whoa. Hold on. Definitely not white.
I agree with Mr. PC Wrights. Maybe we should choose green for the farmers.
You like the color green because you are a farmer. I think it should be purple, so we can display how Arkansas is an extremely moderate state.
Why are we even discussing this? Shouldn't we be talking about tax reform instead of wasting time with this?
Well, the people have spoken. They believe this is worth talking about, so we are deciding this now.
Excuse me, sir, but shouldn't the color of the ribbon be rainbow to include all types of people?
Please, silence your phones.
I just received a call from Walmart HQ, and they agree with, what was your name again? My name is Fabulous. They agree with Fabulous that the color should be rainbow.
Target concurs with the decision of it being rainbow-colored ribbon.
Is there a motion to make the ribbon rainbow-colored?
I motion to make the color rainbow.
I second the motion. The motion carries because I said so.
The committee will now vote and not be on record to keep the people in the dark. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you, Susan. And thank you for listening to ASA News, The Parrot. Next up, there are reports of a gorilla on top of the Capitol Dome demanding massive sums of taxpayer cash. His name? Medicaid expansion.
PHP Parody.
Well, this weekend is Memorial Day, and everyone's geared up for summer, and you guys are going to be traveling. Yeah, this coming weekend, Memorial Day. Yeah, a week from today. Just so you know, the government wants to take the time to take more money from you when you're on your road, and they do this bogus revenue generation called Click It or Ticket, and it is completely bogus. Let me listen to this report. Northwest Arkansas law enforcement officials are warning drivers they will be stopped if they are not wearing their seatbelt. Well, isn't that already the law? So you're telling me that you're not really, we don't really enforce it unless we get it behind. I mean, come on, man. I'm just so sick of people enforcing things because they feel like it. Well, we're now going to enforce the seatbelt laws because we feel like it, when in reality, the seatbelt laws shouldn't even be on there in the first place. And you talk about something the Republicans can't do. We tried to lower the fines. We didn't even try to get rid of it. We just tried to lower the fines because there's been so much abuse in local communities with people getting these tickets and the court fees that they get them with. $25 seatbelt ticket ends up costing you like $250 or something crazy. And we couldn't even do that with the personal liberty Republican Party. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But this Memorial Day weekend, traffic volume is expected to be the highest in a dozen years, so why not, write these reports, and the Arkansas law enforcement officials everywhere, now we care about the seatbelt. Yeah, it has nothing to do with the fact that there's more opportunity for massive sums of revenue because there's more people on the road. And by the way, it is not about public safety. I mean, it's just not. A seatbelt is not about public safety. You're driving the car, you're hurting no one. You're hurting no one. And then, people are going to say, what about kids? Yeah, I mean, sure. Don't even get me started on the seatbelt laws with kids, though. We got kids riding in, we might as well what? Okay, when you graduate high school, you can stop riding in the booster seat? Yeah, okay, all right. Finally, you graduated high school, and you get to actually sit in a normal car without having a booster seat. Congratulations. You got law enforcement officers. They're sticking their hands in your car window, juggling the carriage, juggling the car seat, making sure your baby's strapped in properly, waking the baby up. I've heard that's what happens. Well, it's just the law. Yeah, some law. Protect and serve. We got to take we're ending the show. We'll see you tomorrow. Sorry I was so fired up just now.